All right, this is now recording. Okay, I'm going to join in. Shh.
The camera's recording.
Yeah, I think he's joining.
Oh, sorry.
We have Ryan.
Stop.
Hi there, Ryan.
Hi, how are you?
Hey. Good.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
Yep. You got a good crew there?
Yeah.
Yeah. that's
Any
good.
other schools join in yet, or just us?
Yeah, there should be anywhere from 2 to 3 other schools.
Okay.
So, we'll just, should we do, Josh, wait a minute, or just go ahead? What do you think?
We can get started, I think.
Okay. All right.
If you want to hop in afterwards, then
Yeah.
go right in the middle of it.
Okay.
So who are we talking to? What school are we talking to here?
So this is Southern Okanagan Secondary School. We're in British Columbia, in Oliver, BC. And this is a grade 9-10 program called EPIC. So it stands for Experiential Project-Based Indigenous Community. I have this
Covered
group of,
everything in that.
yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, right.
So this is kind of set up similar to like you would see in elementary school, where I take these students all day for an entire semester and I teach them 4 classes. So they have English, woodwork, PE, and media arts. And it's kind of an experiential outdoor-based course where we do a lot of stuff inside, outside, and do a lot of fun stuff. So
Very cool.
Yeah, well, just to get the kids started here, thanks students for, oh, we have another person, good. Did you accept her?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Angela. You there? Hi there. Do you have students with you? No, okay.
No students, okay.
Okay, but you can hear us, right? Yeah, okay, good.
Awesome.
All right, we have a class of students from Okanagan with us, and there may be some others joining us. So big hello to the students, and thank you for being part of this project. And just want to thank you and any other class that comes into this for their hard work that you've done in the program. It's been amazing, some of your insights. And we're really impressed with the level of thought, and really impressed with the kind of conversations that we can see them happen back in the classroom. So great job, everybody. But I'm going to, I'm Anita Townsend, one of the facilitators, the coordinators of the program. Josh, you give us a wave. And then
Hello.
Josh Bertram, who's been facilitating and coordinating as well. So I'm going to hand over the program for the next minute to Josh to introduce Ronnie to us. So, and then maybe we can have, well, we have had Okanagan introduce himself, but Jennifer, you're not talking, so you can't introduce yourself. Anyway,
If
Josh.
she can type it in, we can read it out.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, Josh, go ahead and introduce Ronnie.
Okay, hi everyone. So today we have with us Ronnie D. Harris. He is a member of the Stolo, Statlium, Lilwat, and Inca Katma peoples of what we call British Columbia. Ronnie is a media artist, hip-hop performer, composer, filmmaker, artist, you name it. He is, yeah. He's worked with Vancouver Media Arts, Indigenous Media Arts Festival, and is hosts the in-school workshop Reframing Relations for the Community Arts Council of Vancouver. We had him in the start of the program before just to talk to some of the teachers, and it was such a cool experience, and the teachers liked it so much that we wanted to have him back to be able to chat with the students a little bit. So would join me in welcoming Ronnie D. Harris.
Hey, everyone.
Okay. And
Oh, sorry.
I just want to introduce Jack Bloom, the director of Real
Hey.
Canada. He popped in too, so welcome, Jack. We've got Okanagan, from BC, and we've got a couple of teachers from Golden, British Columbia, right?
Great.
Okay, great. Okay, so Ronnie, it's all yours.
Real good. First off, we'd like to thank everyone for being here. Thank our class out in the Okanagan for joining us on this journey. I'm gonna click you guys actually on here so I can see you. Clicking, for joining us on this journey, for going through these films, and especially for going through the program that you're going through. It seems like you're taking an alternative pathway to learning, and sitting through this work with us is important. As an Indigenous storyteller, as an Indigenous creator of arts and programming, participation in watching Indigenous films and understanding Indigenous stories is very, very important. My work with Real Canada has been based upon that. The way that as Indigenous people we experience reality is a lot different than what's been taught to us within the schools. And so what you see in these films sometimes might not look like the normal films that you see coming out of Hollywood, right? Most of the films you see probably would not ever reach Hollywood. But for us, that's okay, because they embody a deep understanding of our land, a deep understanding of our position in decolonization and our relationship as Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And so I see that there's many different people from different backgrounds in your class there. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really great that you're all there kind of experiencing this together. What's important is that when I was in school, there's nothing like this. I was always the only Indian in school, in the classroom, sometimes in the town, sometimes for miles around, I was the only Indigenous person. So, when I was in high school, I was still getting questions like, hey, Ronnie, do you live in a teepee? Or do people live in a longhouse? And like really pretty ignorant questions, right? Because they just didn't have an understanding. And so to see people take a real respectful and reverent effort to understand, that as an Indigenous person who makes art and creates art and works to create legacy in indigeneity, it warms my heart to see that. So I put my hands up to you for going through this and contributing in the way that you have. Like, this program is very new, so you're part of history being made. No one in the country or in the world is having this exact conversation that we're having or that you had, right? There's no one having it in the exact same way, so you have to really give yourselves, recognize and acknowledge the work that you're doing in that way, because it's important work. For me to recognize that, I think, is what I've been really interested in. And I see that we've got someone else who's joined us here as well. Should we recognize them?
It's just Jenna from Real Canada.
Okay. Hi, Jenna.
Hello.
So, what do we want to do? We want to go through some questions, or is there anything else you want me to address? Is there anything that stands out? I always want to know, what is it you've noticed about Indigenous film? What is it that stands out about all the films that you've seen? Is there something that you're like, hey, this is in all the films, or this is in more of the films than anything else?
So do you guys want to?
Maybe Brian, could you,
We'll have to.
yeah.
Well, it's like looking at my journey
share
personally.
with, some of your students?
Why are you doing this? Oh, just give me a second.
Sorry, we'll just unmute you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, bro.
So looking at my journey as a, oh,
John, can you unmute him? Yeah,
It's not working.
there we go.
there.
Go on.
All right, so looking at my journey as a teacher and educator, I come from a First Nations background myself, being a member of the Osage, Inuit, and Okanagan Nation. So being able to partner in with this program of Real Canada has been a good way of bringing Indigenous content into what I do as a teacher. And with this EPIC program that I teach, I try to infuse Indigenous content throughout the 4 courses whenever I can, and in a cross-curricular fashion to try to tie it into what we're learning in terms of bringing in my culture of the Okanagan Nation and relating it to what the students are learning, and just kind of being able to see that through the different perspectives of what we've seen in Real Canada, and just kind of seeing the shared views of how people are representing their cultures across Canada has been very interesting to see.
Did anyone get a favorite film out of all of those? What was the film that stood out the most to you?
What was your guys' favorite film? Like any ones that stood out the most?
Indian.
Oh. The one called Indian where they had to
Oh,
do
yeah.
the spelling bee. Some of them really like that one.
They were all
That's
really
a
good
funny
films.
one.
Though.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about the clay?
Yeah, they were all really good films.
Yeah. We enjoyed all of them. They
Mr.
were-
Baptiste, the clay.
Claymation was in the beginning.
Four moons.
The Four Moons, that one. Something like that one.
Yeah, the Four Faces of the Moon.
Yeah, Four Faces of the Moon.
It's got some really great work.
dog
She
that
keeps
died.
putting
It
out
was-
great
Mhm.
stuff, so
It was
I
really
can't
like a
imagine how much
head
that's
scratch.
Yeah.
What's your first question on the board?
Oh, one of my students wants to ask you a question.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, I just wanted to know why you call yourself Oswald.
Yeah, some of us were looking at your website and they saw that.
Okay. It's pretty simple. When I was in grade 8, I hung out with a bunch of skaters. I wasn't a skater because I'm too clumsy to ever skateboard in my life, but when we were hanging out, they would skateboard. We kind of made up names for ourselves, so like they were just like the nerdiest names ever. So I chose the name Osgood as my nickname. And when I started doing graffiti, I noticed that all the graffiti artists in New York were like Tacky 167 and whatever, they had numbers. And so I ended up being Oz 12. And then that carried on to when I started a professional hip hop career. And it's just never changed. So that's kind of where it started. There's no really like mystical numbers or anything. I wanted to do graffiti just like they did in New York. So that's how that started. Yeah, to the chagrin of my poor mother who found me doing graffiti once on a giant truck. So that's when I made the shift from actually like doing criminal graffiti to doing graphic design. And so I became a graphic artist using a computer and doing it professionally because my mom just simply said no more. And I started doing hip hop. What else? What other kind of questions stand up to you? Any questions actually?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Style battle? Or
So,
Freestyle battle.
so what led to your career? So what led
Doing
up to it?
music?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, hip hop just sort of spoke to me at a certain time, you know, like, how old is everybody there? What grade is this?
So grade 9 and 10, so like between like 14 and 16.
Grade 9 and 10, all right, so I'm gonna be real with you right now. When I was about 12 years old, you know, I started listening to certain types of hip hop, which is Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, which is politically charged music, right? So go backwards 2 years to the summer of 1990, right, was what we call the Oka Crisis. The Oka Crisis was an armed standoff between the Mohawk warriors and basically the Canadian Army over this city in Quebec wanting to expand a golf course over a graveyard. And so the political nature of that was there's an armed standoff. And I was cognizant for that. I was 11 years old watching it on the news with my grandparents, you know, feeling afraid for my life, having like really racist things happen to me because I was First Nations in a really racist little town where I was the only Indian going to the school there, like getting cornered and physically assaulted. So after that, you know, you kind of go to, you know, feeling that anguish, and then like I started trying to write rap, and I could express it in that way. I could be in my room, and because I couldn't be a warrior, right? I couldn't go out there and pick up a gun and be a warrior. I couldn't protect myself physically because I was skinny, I was by myself. And so I could freestyle in my room and I could write my anger and I could make sense of it through verse. And so that kept developing to the point where around 12 years old, I started writing it down. Grade 7, I left private school and I went to public school, and it was like I was the only one and everyone hated me. And then I started rap, and it was the only thing that I could do to escape the limits of my origin, to escape the limits of the racism and the colonialism, right? It was the only time I could feel free, like I could, 16 bars at a time, like write my way out of that frustration. right? So, and then I started getting really good at it, and it's just something that, it's the one thing I've always done consistently, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know there's that one thing in your life that you're like, yo, I gotta do that thing, whether it's hockey or art or design, or whatever it is, that, for me, it's rap. I tried mountain biking, I tried kung fu, I tried all these things that just never worked, so. And I've realized that it's what I can control, it's what I can contribute, it's what empowers me to help my people, right? So that's kind of why I work with hip hop and rap and give space to that and make sure there's always space for it to make me feel strong, you know?
Yep.
I hope you guys are looking for that thing in your life. That's what you're in school for, right? It's trying to like